Hi everyone, I wanted to upload a video today that I hope will be helpful. It's kind of a part 3 of a couple of videos that I've put out over the last year and a half or so, and it is for embossing and die cutting with the Sizzix Texture Boutique. So if you're not familiar with this machine, it's this one right here. So you might have seen this in stores, but if you've ever seen this little purse, you can usually, especially if you're able to use a coupon or if you find a good deal on it, you can get it for around $20. I've even seen it marked down to like $15 to $17. And I have been using this a ton ever since I got it, and I still have not needed to get a big shot or anything like that. I may at some point, but so far so good. And it's mostly because I've been able to do just about all the embossing and die cutting that I want to do with it. And so I'm just going to show you, because I still get a lot of comments and questions on the 2 previous videos, and I thought it'd be helpful to kind of do an all over different paper weights, different types of embossing folders and dies to show you what I do, and hopefully it will help you. And what I'm going to show you first of all is the difference between the 2 different types of embossing folders that you can use. And one of them that you're going to see out there is something like this. This is just Spellbinder's Embossabilities. This is actually a reversible folder, which I think is genius. So you really get 2 embossing folders in one. And I really like Spellbinder's designs. I picked this up, I think, at Tuesday morning, and I have been able to use it. I cannot use it in the boutique, though, and I will show you why. Okay, so I've got my ruler here, and if you take a look, this embossing folder is just over 5 inches wide. It's about 5¼ inches. And if you see the mouth of the Texture Boutique, I actually measured it again before shooting this video, and sorry about the awkward angle. I hope that this will still help you guys. So I measured this again, and the opening is about 5 inches wide. I think it, to be on the safe side, I just wouldn't buy any embossing folders that are over about 4½ to 4¾ inches wide, only because once you hit that 5-inch mark, it may or may not work, and you might get the folder home and then be disappointed. And the same thing goes for dies. So I'm going to show you a variety here. So this set, I believe this copper set is Spellbinder's, and I believe this is part of their Nestabilities line. And this one, as wide as this die is, it still works in the boutique because it is about 4¼ inches smaller. And so if you're looking at dies, like online or if you're in the store or what have you, just look for these wafer thin dies. So you can't use the cartridge style dies for this machine. If anyone out there has been able to figure out a way to hack that and they can use the cartridge style, I would love to hear it. And also any tips that you can leave in the comments for others would be awesome. I've gotten some really great tips from you guys along my sandwich. Okay, so first of all, the boutique comes with these 2 cutting plates. It does come with its own shim. I did show in an earlier video that I went to Dollar Tree and I just picked up. You can probably find something like this at your local dollar store, hardware store, something like that, even maybe a kitchen type store. Anywhere where they have plastic that's fairly thin but somewhat inflexible, like it does have some give to it that you can cut, will work, because you can basically make your own shims. And as you can see, these are pretty similar to the shim plates. I've made some mistakes on these, so just like with the Big Shot, you have to be careful as far as cutting and things like that. I don't know exactly how I put this here, but there's a really deep groove that I somehow marked into this plate. And the reason that happens, just like this happened, so this happened the other night, there's like that point where you're trying to emboss or die cut and you're running it through the machine, and you are supposed to have quite a bit of resistance when you put it into the machine in order for it to work. And there's just that tiny little bit of space between enough bulk in your sandwich and too much. And so you can technically break your machine if you try to force something in there that just doesn't quite fit. But you still want a lot of resistance because otherwise it doesn't work. So I end up just, you kind of get a feel for it, but you still might make some mistakes along the way, especially if you're using all different weights of paper, all different die cuts and embossing folders and whatnot. So this paper is from Hobby Lobby. It's just about the thinnest scrapbook paper that I had on hand, and it's roughly the weight of regular printer paper. So I cut out 2 sheets to show you embossing and die cutting. And what I've done is that this embossing folder, you can see I've used it with polymer clay, I put paint on it, it's pretty messed up, it still works, but I actually use this as a shim because it is thick, but not so thick that it jams the machine. So I've ended up a lot of times just popping this in here because it's easy and it makes it easy to build bulk. So if you have an embossing folder that's already kind of been through some wear, you might consider that, and you might not even have to get the extra plastic. So here you can see I've cut all the papers to about 4.5 inches, 4 to 4.5 inches wide. And what I'm going to do with this one is I'll show you, this works just the same as a regular embossing folder. This is a border folder, so you might have seen these like at Michael's. They usually sell them in sets of like 2 or 3. This is the Sizzix brand. I also have some by Doris, and it's going to fold over your paper just like the folder would. And you can get a really neat belly band. You can make a cool belly band with this, or just embroider or emboss like edges of paper. Just a really neat way to decorate. So with this, I'm going to stack it on top of my embossing folder. I'm going to take out these extra shims, the homemade shims, and use this one. Then I'm going to have my bottom plate and my top plate, and you'll notice a very slight curve in these plates at the end, and you want to make sure that the curved side is up on the top one, and on the bottom one that the curved side is down, and that will help you. It actually just helps you put the plates into the machine. It's a tiny bit thinner at that point, so it's kind of like getting off of a ski jump. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to start feeding this in here, and there's a point where it just stops, and you can kind of let the sandwich sit there for a second, and this is where you're going to be doing some of your guess and check. So I'm going to hold it with one hand and start to turn. Again, I'm just going to stick it in there to where it stops on its own and kind of hangs there, and use one hand to guide it. And then this comes in really handy, this handle on top, because you can kind of brace your hand on it, and that helps you Well, it's good for you guys to see me make all the mistakes because this is exactly how it is. I'm going to roll it back out and I'm going to take out the extra embossing folder, put the shim back because it's thinner than the embossing folder, and try again. I'm just going to leave all this in the video, you guys. I know this might be tedious, and it can be when you're working with this machine, but you'll get a feel for it, and you'll be able to get some nice results. Okay, so this time it should work. See, I'm having to put a fair amount of muscle into it. I'm still using my other hand to hold on to this handle up here, the little purse handle, and that just helps you get some leverage. You can see it rolling on out. Oh, that angle is awkward with the camera. Okay, so now let's take this out, and you can see it embossed there. I'll take pictures and insert the pictures into the video too, so that you guys can really see the effects. Now what I'm going to do is die cut this exact same piece of paper so that you guys can see how that works too. I'm going to use this wafer thin die. You want to make sure the ridge side is down, the cutting ridge goes down like that. And the best way to do this without die cutting your shims or your plates is to use something like a thick piece of paper that's cut to the size of the shim, or one of these inexpensive ones that I got, because this way you're not cutting into your good stuff, like your plates, which, you know, like I said, I've done many times, but it's okay. Now for this one, because you don't have an embossing folder in here, which adds some bulk, I'm going to put the embossing folder. You can also, like I said, stack shims. You can stack chipboard, pieces of paper, thick cardstock, whatever you have on hand to add bulk. So as you can see now, I've got bottom plate, cheap shim, paper, die with the cutting side down so that it's going to cut the paper, embossing folder for weight, the shim that comes with the machine, and now the top plate. Maybe if let me just do it backwards again. Okay. This is the really thin paper that is scrapbook paper, but it's roughly the same weight as printer paper. So it's just the thinnest paper that I have at home. And again, takes some doing, definitely takes some muscle. You can see it's coming out. And put this over on the light side here. I try to keep it pretty stationary so that if you do have to recut it, it's still, this one worked. Okay. But I do try to keep it really in the same exact spot when I'm doing the checking to see if it cut, because if it didn't cut all the way or if it didn't cut at all, and you want to run it back through, you want to stay on that same track wherever the die was at if it was starting to cut. Okay, so this one worked out. So there's the super thin scrapbook paper. Okay, let's try a little more complicated of a die. So I don't have one of those tools, like the tool-in-one that has a little brush on it that helps you get out extra little bits. So you can see that there's still little bits in this one. In fact, I'm going to grab this one. This one's a little bit less complicated. It does have some little bits, but as you can see with my larger one, this is full of the paper that was cut out. And you could also, if you don't want to buy that tool, you can use any little, like an awl. I'll show you that really quick. I haven't tried this yet, but because the tool-in-one to me, one part of it looks like a toothbrush, I've thought about just buying a toothbrush and trying it for this. I haven't done that yet, but so the X-Acto, you could go through and just poke out the papers. Put that over here. This is a jewelry awl. It's just basically like a little pick. So you could even use like a thin screwdriver, whatever's thin enough to poke into these little spots. So try to get that closer so you guys can see. This is why I think that the brush would be faster, because you could probably scoot it across and just get all that out of there instead of just individually going through. But this works. It just takes longer. And you could use a needle. You can even use a pencil. Maybe. Actually, yeah, no. The pencil is a little bit too thick. So let me know, please, in the comments below if you have tried a tool that's specifically made for cleaning out your dies. That Spellbinder's tool-in-one is just the only one that I've seen. I think there's some others out there, though, I might have seen online. That's just the most common one that I happen to see. But okay, so this one's about, you know, a quarter of the way clean now. I'm debating if I should. This one, okay, I am gonna try this one. I'm gonna take out all the pieces of paper and then I will come right back. Okay, so this is a very intricate die. There's a lot of these out there, and hopefully this audio is coming through. Sometimes my computer will pop up and say there's no audio, but there still is audio for some reason. Okay. I haven't used this one again since the first time I used it, because it just depends on whether or not you want to take the time to, it's not just the cleaning part of it. I don't know if people struggle with this with their regular die cutting machines, but even the die cutting itself, I'm going to need a thicker piece of paper, is it takes a lot of guesswork because with the paper I was using, it was a little bit too thin. It ended up ripping. So even when you are die cutting with this, it can be frustrating. Okay, so what I'm using right now is Tim Holtz scrapbook paper, and this is roughly the weight of maybe a little heavier than like 65-pound cardstock. I guess you would call it a medium weight paper. So what I'm going to do for this sandwich is I used my cheap shim for underneath where it cuts. Got my paper, got my die, the embossing folder for bulk, a little piece of dog hair there, and I'm going to leave this shim out for now and just see how it does with the plate. Once again, okay, I'm feeling a good amount of resistance, and it does seem to be feeding through. And sometimes you just have to see it through because it'll be very hard to turn this, but it usually means you'll get a really nice clean cut. Okay. That one was intense. Okay, so put that on the floor for a second. So again, I'm just going to try to keep this as stable as possible just in case I need to run it back through. And now I'm going to flip this. Okay, this one would definitely need to go back through. As you can see, I can pull away some of the paper a little bit to show you. It did actually cut and score at the embossing folder. Okay. Okay. If this does end up working, it's going to be a close one because it was pretty difficult to turn the last time. And now it's got the extra shim in there. So personally, if I keep trying with a particular die or something and it's just not working out, I usually end up just using something else. You know, since this is a hack, it isn't perfect, and it's very difficult, but it is going through, so hopefully this time it'll cut all the way through. But it just kind of depends on how much energy you have, how much time you want to take, and whether or not you have carpal tunnel syndrome. Okay. Oh my goodness, I'm getting a workout. Okay. When it does work out, it's just like magic though. It's awesome. It can be quite a little process. Okay, so here's my paper. I'm just going to take a look here. Yeah, see, there's certain areas still that are scored but not cut. If at this point you're out of patience, as I am, you would just move on and do a different dye, or maybe emboss, you know, cut it out a different way. Because even if we take this out at this point, it's going to, I mean, you can, like I said, if you've got that tool, you could try, you know, popping out some, but I can see just by looking at it that it's still only scoring and not completely die cutting all the way through. So if I just try to peel this away right now, this will show you how, see, it has, I mean, this dye has great potential. It looks really pretty when it works. And if you wanted to, you could go through and poke through, and then if there's little areas where it didn't quite cut, you could use like a tiny pair of pinking scissors or something like that. Yeah. It's up to you. I think I'm going to title this video Do's and Don'ts because I was kind of expecting to get, you know, a little bit better results with some of the intricate dyes to show for you guys, but like I said, it's just kind of a guess and check process, and but I did want to show you a lot of the benefits of, you know, having the boutique, because if you're trying to save money, like I always am, it's a great little machine. It does a lot, and what I'll try to do for the end of the video here is take a bunch of pictures of some of the projects that I have worked with this machine to show you that I got some awesome results from it, and it generally, I highly recommend it. Okay, so thanks for watching, you guys, and again, if you have any questions or anything you want to add, any tips that you didn't see here that you want to let people know about, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.